Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash. I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
Nobody wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? It's the outrage.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
They're pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infertata is the only global solution.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of like, I don't know, vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing, before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
And, you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie, and I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
Bill Maher and Joe Ryan don't often agree, but they have one thing to say about Rachel Zegler's purportedly woke Snow White adaptation. This could be among Disney's worst failures to date. When it became known that Disney intended to change the story of Snow White away from romance, the first warning signs appeared. They allegedly desired a more independent princess who didn't require a prince at all. On paper, that would seem innocuous. However, in reality, it meant disregarding a classic's essential components. The romance between the dwarfs, the captivating purity.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Oh my God.
Suddenly, those who had intended to purchase tickets began to wonder if Zegler actually enjoyed the narrative she had been contracted to tell. Then it took an additional step. She had criticized a whole political bloc on social media, advising anyone who backed President Trump to leave and never know peace, according to old tweets.
So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump.
But you are not entitled to call for Trump supporters to be harmed. Like, you are actually not entitled to do that. And so let me just remind you, Rachel Zegler, of what the map looks like, just so you can understand when your Disney movie is coming out, how many people you are wishing harm upon. Like, this is America right now. I will love you through these 4 years as best I can. F Donald Trump. Yeah, totally stable thing for her to be posting, wishing harm upon Trump voters, wishing that we have no peace.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
And they postponed the release of this thing, Ben, for a year because their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, told all Trump supporters that they could f off, but she did. That was just in November. They didn't even know she was going to do that one.
Unstable attacks were among them. Far Donald Trump, she yelled literally, cursing out his supporters. It was too harsh even for viewers who weren't Trump supporters. After all, openly disparaging half of the nation when you're the lead of a Disney film targeted at families can backfire greatly. A torrent of condemnation broke out.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million, and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime. And let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely atrocious.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension: racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level?
How did Joe Ryan and Bill Maher respond to Zegler's outspoken remarks? Did she offend millions of ticket buyers? Ryan, who is well known for his free-flowing podcast in which he discusses anything and everything, jumped into what he perceives as a growing trend in Hollywood where people are sacrificing tradition and story for the sake of being woke. He criticized the Snow White remake in a recent episode, saying it shows that studios are more concerned with negative publicity than they are with providing entertainment.
These big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince and be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after? No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword.
Meanwhile, Bill Maher, who is well known for his criticism of political correctness, attacked the absurdity of calling the prince a stalker and exterminating dwarfs in the sake of advancement. Ma saw it as a prime illustration of how woke society overcorrects and becomes inadvertently hurtful, particularly to small-scale actors who miss out on big roles.
So no Prince or a different kind of Prince? I'm sure a lot of people will assume it's a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude. Yeah. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Next came the subplot, or more precisely, the elimination of any romantic subplot. The central theme of the original Snow White is that love will ultimately triumph over evil. Zegler declared with pride that a narrative about a lady who dreams of a prince did not interest her.
Because you just can't close your mouth. You just can't be sane, even when you do open your mouth. I think this girl does not deserve a feature-length film, but rather, she deserves to be in a padded cell.
By emphasizing virtue signaling so much, Rogan and Maher both emphasized the same point. Disney ignored the clear reality that people attend movies to be entertained, not to hear lectures. They claimed that Zegler's personal attacks on a significant portion of the populace only served to fuel the flames. Why would fans pay to see the star on the big screen if she appeared antagonistic toward them?
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, "Why are we doing that? We've hired a Latina actress to be Snow White. That's progressive. But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards." And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, okay, we're going to add magical creatures.
Then they got even crazier and they decided that the dwarves in Snow White weren't woke enough, okay?
Apart from Zegler's demeanor, the production choices themselves seemed like a recipe for trouble. The 7 dwarfs, who each have unique personalities, constitute the core of the original Snow White and are not just supporting characters.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. That many scripts that come down the pike.
Only 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarf jobs here. But because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right.
Instead of giving the dwarfs new details, Disney chose to either completely eliminate them or swap them out for computer-generated imagery of fantastical animals. Fans saw odd pictures of these alleged creatures, some towering, others short, as a mishmash of arbitrary shapes when leaks appeared online.
You're replacing jobs that people could have as little people. Okay. Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, it's 4 dwarfs. You know?
These are roles made for actors of my stature. I can't go out for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me.
Right.
And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right.
The 7 dwarfs of Snow White have, of course, all just disappeared, and now they're the 7 dysfunctional men.
They couldn't have dwarves. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, because Peter Dinklage and all them were talking crap.
So originally they
took a picture of what the dwarves were supposed to look like?
I can find it, but it was an array. It was the DEI of
dwarves.
Yep. Well, they had to reshoot the film and use CGI dwarves. There you go.
So those guys didn't make it.
No.
That guy's 6'2".
And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho.
I mean, I guess, what are we going to have? Like a lesbian, a trans person, someone in a wheelchair, someone of color? Like, I don't understand. Why weren't the dwarfs enough? But apparently they were too offensive because the most famous dwarf of all, Peter Dinklage, said something negative about it back in 2022, thus ruining the biggest acting roles the dwarfs had ever seen since the creation of Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas back in the 1970s.
Many said they lacked the unique qualities that made the dwarves so endearing, appearing to be cheap stand-ins from a forgettable fantasy film. Little person players were incensed, pointing out that each dwarf would have played a significant part that they hardly ever get to play.
Who the hell are you to say all of Andrew's could get cut? Like, who are you?
Oh my God.
Are you Disney? I've read your book, and I have. It's a phenomenal book. You're losing generation of loyal viewers. When you think about Snow White, what is the premise? What is the story?
It's a love story. It's a love story.
It's a dream for a girl to grow up and a man falls in love.
I'm really upset that it's the biggest theme here is that it's anti-men. She called him a stalker.
It was referred to as a certified bomb in headlines within days of its deployment. According to reports, the movie cost more than $200 million. Taking marketing into account, Disney had anticipated an opening weekend of at least $150 million, but it only managed to raise $43 million. That is a disastrous flaw, particularly for a legacy remake that ought to have been inevitable. Some who went to the movies left grumbling that the items with a doll theme was left unopened on store shelves and that it felt hostile to lovers of the original doll lines. Explicit indications that families were avoiding the public's message was unanimity. You can't disregard tradition, offend half of your audience, and hope for box office success.
They've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now, and how they had her tweet out like a little, "Yay, Snow White, can't wait, so excited, I love to play her." And she did it and got like millions of views, and they were like, "Good job, Rachel." And then she, like minutes later, followed it up with, "And never forget, free Palestine." And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White.
As rumors of internal strife at Disney began to circulate, insiders asserted that executives were taken aback by how unpopular Zegler's political remarks were. Others said that the reshoots, which are reported to have cost millions extra, were necessary because the creative team attempted to change course mid-production.
Please?
For which movie?
However, every Zegler interview that came to light simply served to heighten tensions. She argued that the movie was more relevant than ever and told the media that she was pleased to have abandoned any thought of a prince. Critics made fun of her for reprimanding the audience for loving the previous rendition by waving her finger. Executives frantically looked for potential fixes. Could they save the franchise with a follow-up that reverses the modifications made if they quietly let Snow White fade away in theaters and hope for better streaming results? Right now, everything appears precarious, and Disney's once unwavering brand devotion appears to be at risk. Not even Discount Tuesday could stop Rachel Zegler from witnessing her own movie fail in real time while sitting in a mostly deserted theater. It was the ultimate Hollywood terror. Not only did the Awakened Snow White remake fail, but it also faded into obscurity, leaving Zegler and a few companions who were willing to risk their lives to see the devastation up close. This was a harsh reality check for an actress who was once heralded as Hollywood's next great thing. The box office numbers are now returning calls, and the message is obvious. Nobody arrived. On March 25th, 2025, Rachel Zegler gathered some devoted friends. Mason, Isla Maria Isabel Demison, and Jorge Mason Remy for what ought to have been a proud moment seeing her film on the big screen. However, it appeared more like a ghost town than a movie premiere when they entered the cinema. Her companion attempted to hype the event even though there weren't many other people there. Zegler, Ilda said with great enthusiasm as Rachel's name appeared on the screen. Rachel. She chuckled and offered a little awkward encouragement, as if to act as though nothing was wrong. Nobody is certain today if the theater was indeed hired, or if it was just naturally that empty. In any case, the quiet was more audible than any cheers. They took advantage of a viral trend in an attempt to make the most of it. This occurred after they approached a Regal staff. Nobody turned up for the incredibly embarrassing event, which seemed like a birthday party. Even the Snow White popcorn bucket appeared embarrassed. This disaster is the first sign of trouble for Hollywood, according to experts like Bill Maher and Joe Rogan. They contend that studios overcorrect and, ironically, incite even greater reaction because they are so intent on avoiding controversy. As Snow White bomb is being viewed, well-known producers and directors are concerned about the possibility of similar updated remakes in the future. There may be significant layoffs at Disney as a result, according to rumors. Disney's bottom line has suffered due to the expense of several box office failures, including Lightyear Strange World and now Snow White. Investors are probably incensed that such a catastrophic collapse of a surefire classic is possible. Additionally, there is Rachel Zegler. She changed from being a sensational newbie to someone known for being polarizing. Is she worth the risk? The skill is there, but so is the baggage. Casting directors have started to murmur. In the end, this disaster might make Disney reconsider its strategy. If fans continue to reject the finished result, the trend of depending on classic remakes while incorporating strong political messaging into them can only last so long. Disney may be forced to return to what initially made them great if box office profits serve as the ultimate judge. Touching tales that bring people together rather than alienate them, was this Snow White remake doomed from the beginning, or might it have been saved by a different strategy? Some people think it never stood a chance, since Disney chose to abandon the main plot in favor of nebulous contemporary themes. An opposing viewpoint accuses Rachel Zegler of alienating viewers with her hostile social media presence well before the first trailer was released. In any case, the outcome is the same. The movie failed and has since drawn a lot of criticism. Two voices that hardly ever overlap, Joe Ryan and Bill Maher, both cited the disaster as evidence that Hollywood's awakened overreach can ruin even the most popular tales. Instead of a successful modernization, we received a hollow shell in which entire demographics were advised to avoid it, romance was ridiculed, and dwarfs were substituted. Disney may need to review its entire live-action strategy going ahead. The enchantment of classic fairy tales continues to captivate fans. They are frequently receptive to updates, but not if they come out as patronizing or dismissive. The studio must keep in mind what made these tales compelling to audiences of all ages if it hopes to continue expanding on its heritage. Regarding Rachel Zegler, only time will tell if she can move past this, or if she will be seen as the actress who alienated fans to start one of Disney's biggest big-screen failures. To demonstrate that she can still be a box office attraction, a new project and a strategic approach to public relations may be required. However, Snow White is currently seen in the entertainment sector as a cautionary tale. The fastest path to a theater that is empty is to disregard your primary audience. Regardless of how cherished the original work may be, the story's true lesson ultimately has nothing to do with princesses or dwarfs. It explores what happens when conceit, political posturing, and artistic misunderstanding come together to destroy one of Disney's most cherished and ancient fairy stories. Tell me your opinions, and get ready for the next major remake. Do you think Disney could have saved this by respecting the original plot more, or was the mix of polarizing star and aggressive messaging a surefire way to fail? Disney makes an effort if Snow White is any guide. We should all be cautious about having high hopes.